You're listening to the Savage Lovecast, Dan Savage's sex and relationship show for grown-ups. If you're under 18, get out of here, youngin'.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
I just can't with the Hitler had a micropenis story. So if you were hoping this week's intro would be about the newly released analysis of Hitler's DNA, as it turns out, he may have had a rare genetic condition called Kallmann syndrome, which can leave male sufferers with undescended testicles and micropenises. If that's what you're hoping I was going to talk about, top of the show, you're going to be disappointed because I don't want to talk about Hitler's dick. Because I'm a fan of dick. Not of Hitler. Clarification I now have to make because so many podcasters on the right have come out as fans of Hitler's in the last few years. So to be clear, this podcast is pro-dick and anti-Adolf. I also can't, kind of the same reason, pro-dick. I can't with the Vladimir Putin has pictures of Donald Trump giving Bill Clinton a blowjob story. Donald Trump has ruined so much for all of us already. So many shattered norms, so many battered institutions. And the more I hear about this alleged picture of this alleged blowjob referenced in the released batch of Jeffrey Epstein's emails, the closer Trump comes to ruining blowjobs for me. And blowjobs got me through 2025, and they were how I was planning to get through 2026 and 2027 and 2028 and 2029. So I can't with this story either. I also can't, never could, never would with Meghan R. Kelly, the woman who has no soul, defended Trump and Jeffrey Epstein this weekend against charges of child rape by pointing out that Epstein's victims were around 15 years old. Some were a year or two younger. They were children, and he trafficked them to his friends, Meghan admits. But Meghan wants us all to understand that these girls weren't prepubescent children. They were post-pubescent children. So not pedophilia and therefore fine. I'm going to climb out here on a limb and say I don't think Meghan R. Kelly would be out there arguing, hey, if there's grass on the field, play ball. If Rachel Maddow got caught fucking 15-year-old girls, or Anderson Cooper got caught fucking 15-year-old boys. And I have been with Lily Allen, actually, and her new album, West End Girl, which I am loving. But I would like to offer a caveat, a little asterisk, a note. The new album, which is a huge hit, is basically a song cycle about the collapse of her marriage to Stranger Things star David Harbour. Allen is now the world's most famous HUD. She was in her marriage to David Harbour, Polly under duress, and it did not work out. And her new album is great. It's really, really good. I am loving it. But it is out there confirming a lot of people's priors about open relationships. David Harbour, for the record, sounds like a complete piece of shit. I am not rising to defend him, but I will say, just as people whose open relationships are going great don't send me questions about their great open relationships, pop stars whose open marriages are going great don't put out albums about their great open marriages. Remember, if it is a shit show, we hear about it. If it's not, we don't. Something to bear in mind while you're humming along to Non-Monogamy, which happens to be my favorite track on West End Girl. And I want to remind people that no one listens to Lemonade, Beyonce's album about her husband's infidelities, a husband she chose to stay with. Nobody listens to that album and says it tells us everything we need to know or confirms everything we already knew about straight monogamous marriages. Lemonade told us everything we needed to know about one straight monogamous marriage, not all straight monogamous marriages. Likewise, West End Girl tells us everything we needed to know, more than we needed to know, about one non-monogamous marriage. Doesn't tell us everything about all non-monogamous marriages. Finally, I can, actually, with Jack Schlossberg. I would with Jack Schlossberg. He's the member of the Kennedy family who's most famous for posting thirst traps in an effort, he says, to attract attention to his critiques of Trump and his lunatic uncle, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., in the run-up to the 2024 election. Some accused Schlossberg of gay baiting. But for those of us who are old enough to remember when hot straight guys beat up gay guys they thought might be into them, I'll take Schlossberg. I don't know if thirst traps and trolling qualify Schlossberg to be a member of Congress, but I prefer modern gay baiters I can't avoid on social media to the gay bashers I had to run from in high school. All right, coming up on this week's show, Big Dick Neighbors sub drop and what to do when your teenager gets churchy all of a sudden, churchy and judgy. And then on the Magnum, I speak with sex researcher Ashley Bloomberg about her recent paper detailing why women go into sex work. And for our Magnum subs, we have a new Sex and Politics coming out on Thursday with philosopher Manon Garcia about her new book, Living with Men, Reflections on the Pellicott Trial. We also have a new After Action report coming out on Friday for everybody, micro listeners and Magnum subs alike. And it's about everybody's favorite holiday pastime, nipple torture. Remember, if you've tried something new and you want to talk about it with me for After Action report, send us an email at q@savage.love. And, oh my gosh, one more thing before we get to the calls. Our 1,000th episode of the Savage Lovecast is coming up on January 6th. We want to do a quickies show for our 1,000th episode. Quick and dirty questions, quick and dirty answers. Record your 1 minute or less call right now at savage.love/askdan or record it on your phone and send it to us at q@savage.love and be a part of our 1,000th episode. All right, let's get to the calls. This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames, the best digital picture frame and the best gift ever. For a limited time, visit auraframes.com to get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver Mat frames by using promo code SAVAGE at checkout. This episode is sponsored by Hims, affordable access to ED treatment all online. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/savage. This episode is brought to you by Helix Sleep, makers of the best mattresses ever. And right now, my listeners get 27% off site-wide when you go to helixsleep.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. In honor of being friends with your exes, so I dated my neighbor who lives 5 doors down, and we broke up almost 6 months ago, but we have found a way to be friends, and a lot of it's just like hanging out in a driveway, throwing the frisbee for a dog for a half an hour, but I genuinely enjoy his company. But we broke up. One, he had the emotional IQ of a squirrel, but the other one was he just literally had too big of a dick. Like, sex was not enjoyable for either of us. We tried like dick donuts and non-penetrative options, and I feel like we did try, but like I'm someone who could have sex every day and my libido plummeted. I know he wasn't really enjoying sex because he couldn't do what he wanted, and it just hurt me. And I know he didn't want to hurt me, so we ended up just not having a ton of sex. And that was another reason we broke up. But now that I'm dating and I have this neighbor who like I can't escape and we are friends, like, do I tell a new partner that I'm friends with this guy and we used to date? And if they ask, because I might not like start with that information, do I tell them the truth of like his dick hurt me? Or do I say like, oh, we just broke up, we're better as friends, or like he really just couldn't emotionally connect to me or whatever? Like, I don't know what's more or less like threatening to another guy, like someone with a massive dick, or like literally I didn't enjoy sex with this person, or just leave that out completely. So just didn't know if you had some advice on what to disclose, what not to disclose, what might put a guy's wandering, insecure brain to rest.
Squirrels always struck me as pretty emotionally intelligent when I paused to think about it, which I'd never paused really to consider until you said this guy that you fucked for a while or attempted to fuck for a while had the emotional IQ, the emotional intelligence of a squirrel. I know the squirrels around my house. When I step outside, they make a very close study of me. It's all eye contact and scrutiny to see what I'm going to do next. And they often anticipate my next move and then dart the fuck off. All right, that is completely irrelevant. Not what your question is about. My advice: leave this guy's dick out of it. Yes, you should probably disclose to the men that you're seeing if you're getting serious about them, because it'll probably come up at some point and you don't want to be then accused of having hidden this from them. And then the hiding becomes the issue, or the deceit or accusations of deceit become the issue. You should tell the men that you're getting serious about When you start talking about exes or the people you dated recently, which is a conversation you would have with them, and they would be disclosing a few things about their romantic histories too, you could say, I dated my neighbor briefly for a few months, 6 months, maybe tops. And it didn't work out because he has the emotional intelligence of a dumb squirrel. Not one of the squirrels who lives around my house, but a dumb squirrel. But leave his dick the fuck out of it, even though it would probably benefit some men who are insecure about the size of their dicks, which is a lot of the men out there, to hear that there are guys whose dicks are so big that they're a problem, that a dick can be too big, that a lot of women prefer average, maybe a little above average, sometimes a little below average, to absolutely painfully massive. A dick can be too big. I learned that in my 20s when I dated a guy who really couldn't do much of anything with his dick. You couldn't get it in your mouth unless you were a python and you could unhinge your jaws. And there was no way that was getting in anywhere else. And I wasn't alone in disappointing him. He'd never been with somebody who could suck his dick or take his dick. And he was a top or wanted to be a top. And his dick was just not practical. Good for knocking out drywall if you're doing a home reno. Not good for knocking out anything else or pounding out anything else. And it was a curse. It was a burden. He was terribly, terribly insecure about his massive dick and the limitations it had placed on him because he didn't like hurting guys either. And it's good that this guy with the massive dick didn't want to hurt you, doesn't want to hurt women, but he's got a massive dick. He is going to have to find the mare to his stallion. And she's out there, but you weren't yet. So the sex didn't work. And I think you should keep that just between you, me, and our listeners. Because the guys you tell it to, even if you say, look, the sex was not good, the dick was too big, they might think that's the lie, that the sex was amazing because the dick was so big, and you don't want them to be insecure about not having as big a dick as your ex, your neighbor with the giant dick who's right there whenever you might need or want him and his giant dick again. They might think that you're lying to them about the sex being terrible and one of the reasons you broke up because a dick can be too big. It is not in most guys' experience to have run into a dick that's impractically large because straight guys aren't sleeping with other men. And so straight guys have it in their heads that a dick can't be too big. You and I, caller, you and I both know that it is possible for a dick to be too big. But you, well, I can tell that to my boyfriends and my husband. I told them about that guy and they get it because they have sex with men. I don't think you should tell it to any of the guys you're seeing. Stick to, didn't work out, low emotional IQ, nice dude. We're polite, not interested in him anymore. Now here, honey, current boyfriend, bring me your beautiful average dick. This episode is brought to you by Helix Sleep. I am sorry to say we are deep into cold and flu season, and no one knows it right now better than I do. I have been sneezing and coughing for weeks. My only solace has been getting to crash on my Helix Sleep mattress and recuperate in comfort. With Helix, you take a sleep quiz that makes buying a mattress easy. It matches you with the perfect mattress based on your personal preferences and sleep needs. We, at our place, have the Midnight Luxe model, and I love it so much. So does my husband. So do our very special guest stars. Helix delivers your mattress right to your door with free shipping in the U.S., and they offer seamless returns and exchanges. The Happy with Helix guarantee offers a risk-free customer-first experience designed to ensure that you are completely satisfied with your new mattress, and you will be. They also offer a 120-night sleep trial and limited lifetime warranty. And get this, just for you, right now, my listeners get 27% off site-wide. Now is the time to invest in your coziness. If there's a cold or flu in your future, you will be glad to have a new comfy mattress. Again, go to helixsleep.com/savage for 27% off site-wide. Make sure you enter Savage Lovecast into the post-purchase survey so they know the Lovecast sent you. That's helixsleep.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. I am a 40-year-old white gal living in Canada. I'm a Magnum sub to your show, and I am a sub/baby girl to a daddy dom. We have a kinky, long-distance, open relationship. I'm his second partner. He has another who he's also long-distance from. We have a lot of kinky dynamics, and one of those is impact play. We did that last week while we were away on a vacation together. And unfortunately, as sometimes occurs, I am now in a pretty severe state of subdrop. I've been having random crying attacks and, just feeling like shit overall as I recenter and recalibrate. And I know eventually my mind will get back to baseline, but it's a painful process. And sometimes we mitigate against the worst effects by playing only early in a visit and then leaving the last day or two or more for just like gentler play. And this time we kind of didn't do that. And so I'm in subdrop now after being alone again, which really extra sucks because having hugs or being held is helpful. Anyhow, my main concern is not solving all of that, which cannot be currently solved, but wondering what your perspective is on communicating to a really smart but very binary minded Dom, very masculine and all the typical gendered senses of the term. He's big, he's strong, he's smart, he's a big bear, he's just incredible in so many ways, but emotionally he can be a little fuzzy at times on grasping where others are coming from. He's sweet and kind and does his best, but sometimes I feel like he resents me for needing him acutely to check in with me a little bit more than he tends to want to do on his own after a visit. I think because he's dedicated time to me and he's now flipped back to normal busy life mode where he has a really intense job and another partner too. And he's like, well, I just spent time with her. Like, I just gave her all this time. And yet, like, I'm in the most needy possible phase and it feels awful to need someone and also feel like shit and like I might be wrong for needing them because the depressive characteristics of drop are just such a mind fuck. Anyway, if you have tips on communicating better with my daddy dom about what I need and when I need it and why it seems to repeat, even though we have been through it before, that would be so helpful.
I don't want to seem unsympathetic. Subdrop is a real thing. Kind of the tide goes out emotionally after intense DS or BDSM or TPE play. And a person, once the relationship kicks back to egalitarian and equals, may need some extra care, affection, attention, may need to be held. Where I want to tell you, you need to take some responsibility for your choices here, though, is what works for you about this guy is that he's a manly man, a big bear of a man, muscular, masculine, a type that isn't noted for emotional sensitivity, high emotional IQ, a guy who's probably not likely to be available to you emotionally in the way that you seem to need him to be once you're no longer there in the same room with him. And you already know how to control for that. You say at the beginning of your call that so you don't have to go through subdrop all on your own, pining for him and resenting him for not checking in on you more. You typically don't do impact play or hardcore BDSM in the last couple of days that you're together. Ding, 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 ding. That's the solution here. The price of admission you may have to pay to be with him is to not get this shit beat out of you by him in the last 48 hours that you're together. It's a little bit like going away together with somebody and doing Molly, where, Molly kicks the shit out of your serotonin levels. People talk about how people have a drop after doing Molly, and they kind of need a day or two to reset before returning to the real world, which is why if you're going to do E or Molly with a lover or a friend, you don't do it the night before you're leaving to head home, because then you're going to be depressed in airports, and there's nothing worse than being depressed in airports. You do it on the Thursday or Friday, and then you go home on the Sunday. And that's what you need to do with this guy. You need to, of course, he should be more emotionally available to him. You're so articulate about your needs. I trust that you've articulated your needs to him thoroughly, and he's still, after you're no longer there in front of him, when he returns to his high-powered daddy dom vibes kind of job and his other romantic partner, it doesn't occur to him to reach out to you in the way that you kind of sort of need him if you're going to play in the last 24 hours that you're together, that you need him to reach out to you. Well, knowing that he's unlikely to do that, to remember to do that without being prompted, which then ruins it for you when he does do it. Girl, baby girl, don't play at least the last 24 hours. If you're together for a week, play stop Saturday afternoon. So you have Saturday evening to go out for a nice meal and all day Sunday to cuddle and be held and work through at least the first stage of subdrop before you go your separate LDR ways. Yeah, I wish there were magic words that you could say to him so he would understand that he needs to call you at least once every, 2, 3, 4 hours the first week that you're home after an intense session with him. But if you've already articulated that to him and nothing's changed, nothing I say, nothing I coach you to say is likely to change that. So you're going to have to be the change you want to see in the world, which means you're going to have to tell your daddy Dom that, yeah, last 24 hours are for cuddles and hugs. Last 36 hours are for cuddles and hugs when you're together for a week. No impact play on the night before your flight. This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames, the best digital picture frame. For this year's Feast of the Ass, capture the warmth of the holiday magic and share images of your Feast of the Ass gathering. The Bunt Cake, everyone singing Feast of the Ass carols, the strong and deep feelings that Feast of the Ass stirs in our hearts. Share these memories with your loved ones far and wide. Here's how it works. Plug in the frame, download the free Aura app, connect your frame to Wi-Fi. It's never been easier to share photos and videos in real time, no matter where you are. Unlimited free photos and video, just download the Aura app, connect to Wi-Fi. You can preload photos before it ships and then keep adding new photos and videos from anywhere at any time. Personalize your gift, add a message before it arrives, share photos and videos effortlessly straight from your phone all year long. Gift box included. Every frame comes packaged in a premium gift box with no price tag. Just think of the special photos you could share. Terry and I are already thinking of new special photos and videos we will be able to share with our Aura frames with our loved ones throughout the year. You can't wrap togetherness, but you know what? With Aura frames, you can frame it. For a limited time, visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver Matte frames, which were named #1 by Wirecutter. You can get that $45 off by using promo code SAVAGE at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code SAVAGE. This exclusive Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal is their best of the year, so order now before it ends. And remember to support the Lovecast by mentioning us at checkout by using promo code SAVAGE. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, Dan. I'm a mid-30s, non-monogamous bi lady in the Bay Area here. I've had a really lovely, caring, affectionate relationship with a friend with benefits for the last year and a half. A man my age I'll call Kevin. He works 12 plus hours a day, and I've had health issues for the last year or so. So our relationship has been based largely around decompressing in the evenings when he's home from work, cuddling a lot and giving massages, and often sleeping together. Doing activities out together is rare because of his limited free time, and we also have never met each other's friends. E&M was new to him, but our relationship has never been exclusive. Well, now Kevin might be on the cusp of a more serious relationship with a friend of his who recently turned into more than a friend. She also has a kid, and according to him is, quote, very monogamous. They haven't actually started anything official yet, as they're both traveling on and off for the next few weeks. He's also being quite cautious since there's a kid involved. Neither of us want to lose our relationship, and he expressed that our friendship is very important to him. My initial thought was like, it's okay, we can still be friends. And that's what he's thinking too. But on more reflection, given the nature of our relationship is so intimate and touchy, I'm like, I don't know if this even is going to be possible or make sense. Kevin has said that at this point, he doesn't feel like it would be right for us to hook up because although he's not technically in a relationship yet, he's worried that any of the three of us might get hurt if we keep fooling around. If I put on my monogamy glasses, I can see where he's coming from. That said, our two hangouts this last week, since he told me this information, were basically all cuddling, stroking each other's torsos, a little bit of kissing, and basically trying really hard not to take each other's clothes off, which is not exactly platonic. I, of course, believe in your doctrine that monogamy is a promise not to fuck other people, not a promise to never want to fuck other people. And if we hang out in the future and are struggling not to be all over each other, or we're just cuddling the entire time, is this really in the spirit of monogamy? Even if this is in the interim period before they decide to be officially monogamously together, it seems pretty questionable. My question for you is, what's your take on the ethics of continuing to hang out like this, at least while we still want to get in each other's pants? Even disregarding the fact that she has a kid, I'm curious about your thoughts. Spending one-on-one time with a fuck buddy that you still want to get with, if he's trying to be faithful to this person, is it just weird and not in the spirit of monogamy to keep hanging out, at least while we're still sort of pining for each other, and also while we can't be doing a nice neutral activity like going on a hike rather than being curled up on a couch together watching a movie?
So you frame the question as whether he should be allowed to spend time with a fuck buddy, you, that he's sort of kind of not allowed to fuck anymore or isn't fucking anymore because he's interested in this other woman who might want a monogamous commitment that he will want or she will expect him to be able to backdate to the moment they met, even before they were officially going out. You frame it as, should he hang out with you? I'm wondering why you would want to hang out with him under these circumstances. Why would you want to hang out with a fuck buddy you're not allowed to fuck? At least right now. Why? Why do you want to torture yourself by spending time with him, unless you enjoy this exquisite erotic torture, spending time with him and cuddling and stroking each other's bodies and really doing everything up to, but not ripping his clothes off as he rips yours off so that you can resume fucking again? I don't know. He's moved you very explicitly, very definitively to the back burner. He's interested in this woman that he knows is interested in monogamy, will not accept a non-monogamous relationship. And he assumes, and it's not necessarily a faulty assumption to make because a lot of people into monogamy take this attitude. He assumes that this woman kind of sort of expects him to honor the monogamous commitment he has yet not made to her because they are not yet in a relationship and they haven't had a define the relationship conversation. But he does know her well enough to know that she wants and expects monogamy from him. But they're not in a relationship yet. And I don't know, maybe she would regard that as him fucking around on her on a technicality, but as technicalities go, that's a pretty huge one. We may want to date someday in the future. You are now bound by all of my expectations of a romantic partner. They all come into effect now. This is her attitude, or what he assumes her attitude will be. They all come into effect now, even though we're not yet romantic partners. That seems a little crazy, controlling, irrational, but it's a kind of very common crazy, controlling irrationality. All the time, people have defined the relationship conversations with somebody that they're dating. They make a monogamous commitment. I hear about this all the time. 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 10 years later, it comes out that prior to the making of the monogamous commitment, prior to going exclusive, the other person had been on a date with somebody else, made out on a dance floor with somebody else, hooked up with somebody else, swung by and saw the fuck buddy that they had been fucking for years, and that is a relationship, and fucked that fuck buddy because they weren't yet in an exclusive relationship with anybody, and people freak the fuck out about that. I'm just going to say it, especially women. Sorry, most of those letters are from women. And so, yeah, he may be doing everything right, but he's clearly prioritizing her and what she might want and what she might expect from him in the future over you right now. And yeah, maybe you guys can have a friendship down the road. But if I were in your shoes, unless I really enjoyed the exquisite torture of cuddling with this guy on the couch that I used to be able to fuck, but I'm not allowed to fuck anymore, and then busting out the vibrator once he leaves and having a wank about what I wanted and how much he cranked me up, but that I didn't get to have. If that was something I enjoyed, okay, then there'd be something in the hangout for me. But if there's nothing in the hangouts for you but frustration, yeah, you should tell him that you're going to take a break from hanging out, that it's too tempting, and he should give you a call in the future if things don't work out with this woman that he's thinking about dating, or if it turns out that they define monogamy together, because that's something that couples do together, define what counts as cheating, what doesn't count as cheating, define monogamy for themselves. And if they define monogamy and how it's going to function in their relationship, if they wind up in a relationship, and it allows for you and the cuddling and the stroking, but not the fucking, and you want to pick things back up with him, then you can. But for now, yeah, don't hang out with this guy. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Hims. According to the National Institutes of Health, as many as 30 million men in the U.S. experience ED. It's more common than a bad night's sleep. But Hims makes getting access to treatment simple so you can feel like yourself again without stress or awkwardness. Hims offers access to ED treatment options ranging from trusted generics that cost 95% less than brand names to hard mints if prescribed. This isn't one-size-fits-all care that forgets you in the waiting room. It's your health and goals put first, prioritized by real medical providers there to make sure you get what you need to get the results that you want and return you to feeling like your old self again. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/savage. That's HIMS.com/savage for your free online visit. Let them know the Lovecast sent you, hims.com/savage. Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information.
Hi, Dan. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada. I'm a cisgendered woman, queer, in my 40s. I'm calling about my son who just turned 14. He was raised non religious by his dad and I, and as well, his dad and I, who are no longer together, had a pretty open lifestyle. We were polyamorous. His dad is bisexual. My current partner is a trans woman. So our son has a lot of queer people in his life. And about a year ago, he found religion on his own and he started going to church weekly and reading the Bible. Up until now, it's been fine. He just got a girlfriend. So my ex-husband thought it was a good time to have a conversation about sex and condoms and all of that, appropriate for his age. And he freaked the fuck out. We started talking about how sex before marriage is a unforgivable sin and he would go to hell. So now we're concerned about what our son's ideas are around queer people, abortion, all of the things that we've supported. We are worried now our son thinks we'll go to hell for, as well for his own mental health and mental state growing up, as sex is a natural thing. I don't want him thinking or worrying he's going to go to hell for the natural things like masturbation or even wanting to have sex, whether he does or not. I just don't know the best way to speak to him. If we try to text him points, I'm just concerned if we come down too hard, it's going to push him down this rabbit hole further in this political climate. I'm concerned for that. Are there certain points we should get across? I feel like talking to a teenager, you have like a 30-second time span before they just bury their head. Any advice would be greatly appreciated.
The advice to parents when teenage kid has a new boyfriend, a new girlfriend, a new NB friend, a new romantic partner that the parent isn't comfortable with is to tread lightly, not to come down too hard, not to try to pull your kid and their romantic partner apart because you don't want to induce a bad case of Romeo and Juliet syndrome, where that kid identifies with that relationship and clings more tightly to that relationship than you would like them to. And it makes it then less likely for that relationship to run its course as quickly as it might if Romeo and Juliet syndrome had not been induced by the parent going to war with their kid's romantic relationship. And I think the same kind of policy applies in an instance like this, where your 14-year-old, 13-year-old kid who's going to church unsupervised, mom, dad, you might want to start going to church with your kid, considering the number of stories that are in the news every week about teenagers being groomed and then sexually abused by quote unquote faith leaders. Mom, dad, don't let your 13, 14-year-old son go to church unaccompanied by mom or dad. Setting that aside, you don't want to come down too hard because you don't want him to cling to these new beliefs as a way of defining himself in opposition to his parents. I think you have to be a little blasé and a little zen about it, which does not mean you can't and shouldn't challenge your son. Your son says people who have premarital sex go to hell. That's like 95% of everybody, probably, I'm assuming, including mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and the other grandma and grandpa in his life. Does he truly believe they're going to hell? That was one of the threads that I began to pull on the sweater of faith when I was a teenager that ultimately unraveled the whole fucking garment. Was I couldn't believe that Hitler, Catholic, baptized, if he had made a full confession before death, got to go to heaven, but Gandhi went to hell. That just didn't square with my sense of what was just. And I think you can put brain teasers to your kid. You don't mention what kind of church they're going to, but you can put those sorts of brain teasers to your kid. I don't think you want to fight them too hard on it, though, because there is a chance that your kid is not yet ready for sex and being showily religious at this stage of life, 13, 14, 15 years old, which is when I went to the seminary. I was a little showily religious at that stage of my life too, because it was a refuge. Because I was in the seminary, therefore, of course I wasn't girl crazy like my brothers, because I was considering taking a vow of celibacy and becoming a priest. Of course, I was absolutely fucking boy crazy, and my showy religious posturing before it became, as it was becoming an empty shell, as I continued to doubt and no longer believe, it was the closet I was hiding in. Could be that your son is not yet ready to be sexually active despite having a girlfriend, despite having a first relationship. And it's convenient for him to plead, don't want to go to hell. It's against my faith. God disapproves. To give him an out so that he doesn't have to do what his parents assumed he might want to do, or what his girlfriend or peers are pressuring him into doing. And if it's a refuge for him right now, you probably don't want to disassemble it entirely, but you do want to plant those seeds in his head. And you do have the right to, I think, as a parent, speak your piece. You are not disrespecting his beliefs by sharing yours any more than he's disrespecting yours by sharing his. And yeah, teenagers, hard to talk to, especially about sex, relationships, God, hard to talk to, which is why you want to trap them sometimes. You want to have those conversations in cars where you're not looking at each other, you're looking straight ahead. And at a certain point, you want to have the conversation with your kid, even if your kid is telling you, I don't want to talk about this. You have to say, look, or your kid says, I know all of this. You don't need to tell me this. You're like, I can't know that you know it. The only way I know for sure that you know it is if I talk about it with you. So if you already know this, you're just going to have to listen to me say it all one more time. And if you stop fighting me, it'll be over. We'll have this conversation over with sooner. And that's how you have those conversations about consent, sexual activity, pleasure. It's a really important part of the sex talk that parents usually skip because it is uncomfortable and awkward. But pleasure is 99.99% of the reason people have sex, 99.99% of the time. Needs to be a part of that conversation you have with your kid about sex. And if your kid's attitudes towards sex at the moment are being shaped by this religious journey he's on, that's also something you're going to need to press through and talk with him about and say that you disagree with him about, that premarital sex is sinful, because it ain't. And then you can ask him what he thinks about queer people, gay people, trans people, non-monogamous people. And you can point out the people in his life that he knows and loves, who've loved and cared for him, who aren't monogamous, who aren't straight, who aren't religious, and challenge him about what he really believes, how he really believes God feels about all of those people who've been so good and kind and loving to him. A good and kind and loving God would not cast those people into a lake of fire for all eternity because they had an orgasm once before somebody put a ring on it. All right, time for listener feedback. First up, a few of the comments listeners left about last week's show in the comment threads at savage.love. Says Jay, wow, Dan had a fisting question on the Lovecast to the caller who took a hand for the first time and got the giggles. I've been fisting for over 30 years, Jay continues. I've had men break out in tears, laugh uncontrollably, talk nonsense, you name it. Fisting touches a part of your brain that's never had any stimulation before, and that part doesn't know what to do with the stimulation, and it can get expressed in unusual ways. Welcome to the club. Fisting, you heard it here first, touches a part of your brain. How far up your ass does that fist have to go before it touches your brain? Says David Adler. To the lady on the Lovecast who's hesitant to get a divorce from what sounds like a truly awful husband because her debts tie her to him, I agree with Dan. Get out now. Life's too short. Don't spend money on anything but a good divorce lawyer, and look for one who's firm, has a bankruptcy lawyer attached to it, who can help you with debts. Ask if you can get a bundle discount. And finally, says Jen, Dan Dyke here, to say gloves are different from dental dams. Dental dams suck. Eating pussy through a dam is like eating a delicious meal with Novocaine. No, thank you. But I put gloves on all the time. I have a box right by my bed. I even use them with my primary partner because anal play with fingers is fun, but trying to remember which fingers are for pussy and which are for ass, that isn't fun. And gloves are expected at most play parties I go to. Good points, Jen. Maybe it was the part about stuffing cotton balls into the fingers of gloves so that another caller wouldn't have to trim their long fingernails to have lesbian sex. Maybe it was that I bumped on and not so much the gloves themselves, because I too have certainly used gloves at play parties. All right, we love our commenters, and you will too. Our commenters, our community, make Savage Love the one and only place on the internet where you definitely should read the comments and leave some comments yourself. If you have something to say about something I said on this week's show, go say it at savage.love and become a part of our community. And now, Savage Love listeners who left voicemails on our answering machine about last week's show get to have the last word on this week's show.
Hey, Dan, longtime listener. I'm just calling in response to your caller whose hookup said he couldn't get off without choking his sex partner. And I think that maybe one of the things that we could do to kind of curb that bullshit is to tell her like it is. Say, I'm so sorry about your sexual dysfunction. I'm just not up for that. Call it a sexual dysfunction if someone says they can't get off without choking somebody.
Hi, Dan. So about the person who's seeking girth, and maybe if that person doesn't have a partner with a girthy penis in their life, they can ask them to maybe wear a sheath, which can be purchased online or at a sex shop, and you can measure that person's penis and find the right size, but it can increase sensation for both partners, and it can be really sexy.
Hey, I'm calling in response to episode 993 about Humpy the cat. Loved that you had a veterinarian on. I'm a veterinarian, and you raised some important issues. But one of the things I was sort of shocked by was that she wasn't sure if she was a mandatory reporter Veterinarians are mandatory reporters when it comes to animal abuse, and sexual abuse of animals is animal abuse. Importantly, the reason why we are mandatory reporters is because there is a one-to-one corollary in homes where abuse is happening to animals. It is usually happening to other people in the home and vice versa. So, important information, yes, we are mandatory reporters. And from a non-clinical perspective, and if we're going to anthropomorphize, which I don't think we should do, animals are cool because they are like themselves, not like us. But if my kid, 5-year-old, 10-year-old, or 15-year-old, was humping my leg, I would very sternly and firmly accept them to a private space to do that and have an internal ick factor for quite a few minutes afterwards.
And we are going to leave it there. Got a sex question for me? Got a relationship problem? At savage.love/askdan, you can record and upload your question or your comment directly onto our website, or you can make a voice memo on your very own phone and email us your question at q@savage.love, or you can call us at 206-302-2064 and leave us a message on our answering machine. The Hump 2025 Fall Tour is nearing the end of its run. Our final screenings are coming up in Philadelphia at Fringe Arts this weekend, and in Chicago at the Music Box Theater on December 11th. And you, yes, you, have less than a month to submit your film for the Hump 2026 Film Festival. There's no fee to enter Hump. There's never been a fee to enter Hump. Hump audiences award $10,000 in prizes to Hump filmmakers, and every filmmaker who gets into Hump gets a percentage of every ticket to Hump sold. So go to humpfilmfest.com right now for tickets to a screening, to stream Hump 2025 if you couldn't make it to a theater, and to find out everything you need to know about getting your dirty little masterpiece into the best dirty little film festival in the world. Follow me at Blue Sky at Dan Savage. Follow me on Instagram at Dan Savage. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian, and me and Nancy and the tech-savvy at-risk youth. We will all be back at you next week. Another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thank you for downloading.